top 5 Big Ten observations today. Number 5, Michigan is going to have to wait to get its signature win. And Michigan and Georgia, it's weird, guys, that they've both been kind of capped. They're the top 2 teams in the country, and their schedules kind of line up to where, you know, Georgia has a test this week with Kentucky, but the big knock on Georgia is that they look bored. Now, Michigan hasn't achieved the heights that Georgia has, so maybe they're not bored, but for people to really maybe buy in and see how good this Michigan team is, they're going to have to wait till later in the season when they play Penn State to see that signature win over a fellow top 10 team. So they're going to have to wait a while. I still think they're really good, but it's going to be interesting to see the narrative around them if, they just continue doing what they're doing, because they wouldn't have played anybody really challenging to them anytime soon.
So you mean throttling up-and-coming Nebraska team made no difference?
Yeah, we didn't talk about that conveniently.
No, there was nothing to talk. Matt Rule has been really edgy. Had him in pads the day after the loss.
You not talking about that, like, it reminds me of every time you see like a news story, like none of the major on Twitter, like none of the major people are talking about this tragic news story. Like that's the controversy with you. Yeah. But yeah, look, they don't.
No, they got their ass kicked.
Yeah, they got Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue, all before November 11th. They finally play Penn State. And I'm talking about Maryland in a second, but their last 3 before the Big Ten championship, if they do in fact get there, would be at Penn State, at Maryland, and home for the Buckeyes. Hey, so their last 3 is
Maryland's
pretty tough.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Maryland's pretty good. We'll talk about them in a second.
They're like unbeaten. They play Ohio State. I wonder if they can kind of make that interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think so. And, they're good. But Michigan, it very much have the Georgia disease of just having a pretty weak schedule compared to their level where they currently appear to be, which is right there amongst the top 5 teams in the country, top 4 teams in the country. You could argue that. They seem to be in that upper class, and it's just hard to determine exactly where because of what you stated. Just the barometer of the tests they've faced up to this point. That does get me excited about those new schedules we were talking about earlier, though, because that Michigan schedule's like, look, but there's like 5 games on there that you can go, circle that one, circle that one, circle that one. But this year, that's not the case. And as you said, it's another a month until they play Penn State. So, this should be a 4-0 run. But they look good. It's just, like you said, it's hard to just see exactly where they fit in, but they're definitely amongst the top.
Stay healthy. The defense is nasty. McNamara
they're really good.
Not McNamara. Who am I thinking about, the quarterback?
J.J. McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy is really good.
Hurt at Iowa
he's out for the year. Yeah.
We'll talk about them in a second, too. Number 4, Maryland needs to be paid attention to. They're 5-0. They can score. Mike Loxley's been, he's waiting, to get that big win. He's done a really good job at Maryland. Maryland was such an afterthought for such a long time. Look, they got Tailua Tagovailoa there. They're fun to watch. They've got wide receivers that can make tons of plays. They're going to make things hard for Ohio State this week. That game being in Columbus probably makes it maybe not as likely as they almost got them last year. If you remember, they played just a back and forth shootout against the Buckeyes and CJ Stroud. So I think they bear watching because they're going to have their opportunities to jump up and bite somebody. So yeah, I think Maryland, you got to pay attention to them. I'm not saying they're going to wind up in Indianapolis at the end of the year, but I think that they could play spoiler for sure if somebody's not ready and can't, go blow for blow with them when it comes to scoring touchdowns, because they are very good on offense.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Talia's been really good. He's a playmaker, no doubt about it, and they can hit some explosives. The question is, can Ohio State? I just feel like they've not been quite to the level of what you'd anticipate with them, and they do have a few more question marks, whether they're actual holes or not. I think still probably is to be determined in some ways, but they're definitely not to the level that we sort of expect them to be in certain areas, whether it's quarterback or just explosive playmakers and things like that. So, yeah, I think Maryland's been a really nice story with their 5-0 start. See how high they can take it. But if I'm Ohio State, I'm definitely on upset watch this week. I'm definitely not overlooking this game in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, this should be fun.
I think I put up bangers that's usually ranked against ranked, but this game could be, now I come back and be 63-22. I don't know. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to that score as it kind of matriculates throughout the day.
Yeah, it's an 11 o'clock kick as well, so it's one of the early ones. Number 3, can Iowa get to 325 with a backup QB? I'm sure that Brian Ferentz is wanting to modify it to, can this be the drive to just, how about 5? How about we do that? Like that would be it, because already with the goose egg on the board a couple weeks ago against Penn State, they only scored, I believe, 16 in the win last week against Michigan State. And now they have a backup quarterback in there who was not Cade McNamara, who's out for the year. So they're with a backup quarterback the rest of the way. Here's another thing that Iowa has to think about. Whether he gets to 325 or not, like if he gets there right now, he's probably barely going to get there. You have got Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA coming into your league next year. You've got Wisconsin, who is running an offense like the ones they're going to be running. Purdue, running an offense like the ones they're going to be running. Ohio State and Michigan are already prolific on offense most year in and year out. Not to mention, it looks like Penn State has found some offensive firepower. And I'm not even getting into what anybody else in the league is doing. And if you're Iowa and you've been consistently good in the league, good, not great because of your offense, maybe you want to consider changing what you're doing, because one of the teams that you are playing this year, now granted it was against Portland State, they scored 81 points in a game. You have not yet done that. It took you 4 weeks to get to 81 points. They did it in one game. Last year you played a similar opponent and gave up, like it was that game where you had 2 safeties in it. Like that is something you got to fix if you're Iowa. I don't think they're going to get there with a backup QB, but even still, if so, Brian Ferentz gone or not, or whatever they're going to do, they need to consider what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's become just a joke. I mean, really, it has. It's a running joke each week in college football. The depths of despair when it comes to Iowa's scoring ability on offense, and now you got a situation where you got to back up the rest of the way, right? Deacon Hill taking over for Cade McNamara, so I don't think that helps your chances, like you said. And the thing about it is they can still just go win games. Like that's the thing about Iowa is you can win games, but you're just frustrated by how you win games sometimes. Purdue's interesting with Hudson Card, not quite the start that I thought that they would get off to, or like him as an individual, because he was such a hot commodity in the offseason. But him and Graham Harrell trying to find their bearings there, and it should be a competitive game. But yeah, the Iowa scoring struggles offensively, I mean, that's going to be a thing until it's not anymore. And they're good enough defensively to make up for some of that. But it's it's just a trudge I would not want to be a part of as a fan at this point.
Yeah, you know what? We're not using the graphics. Somebody just asked me because we had some kind of a change in the way it's set up, but we'll have that fixed. Could we have done this same top 5 and included Iowa last year? Maybe not the other ones, but it's like a trip
probably
down
nothing's changed.
Deja vu all over again, like Yogi Berra said.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we do have the graphics of the of up. So
okay, good.
We just can't see it
all right.
on our monitor today. We'll have it back all tomorrow. It's just it's Katie Rader can explain it to all of you, but it's software update issues and non-compatibility with other stuff. So yeah,
I'm
exactly.
Just kidding.
Number 2.
No, I was about to...
Number 2. Can Wisconsin put it together? They've only got the one loss to Wazoo, and Wazoo's very good, but they just don't seem like they're hitting on all those cylinders yet. It is. Here's the thing we didn't talk about, like the quarterback Tanner Mordecai, who's had a little bit of ups and downs. He knows the offense, but there are a bunch of players on that team that were running a completely different offense last year, and I think that might be why they look kind of stop and starty right now. But if Wisconsin can put it together, they can be, a legit threat in the league. I just wonder if this is I'm sure Luke Fickell has to think of it this way, if this is the transition year before they really start hitting on all cylinders eventually.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're not off to a bad start, but I mean, who they lost to
Wazoo.
To Wazoo, yeah. So I mean, like that's not that disappointing of a win. But yeah, I think let's just be honest, guys. The thing with Tanner Mordecai is he can be very hit or miss. He can be very spotty. We love him. Mm-hmm. We watched him his whole career in high school. But for as much as he can dazzle you, he can also throw some just mind-bending interceptions or, make some decisions that aren't so great. I think they're just kind of going through the trials and tribulations right now. But it's year one, so I expect this is going to get better as time goes by.
And the good news for them, though, like I say that, look, they have Rutgers this week, Iowa, Illinois, then they have Ohio State. That's going to be tough. At Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, and Minnesota. So
They can run the table except one game unless they're like
Yeah, they can
somebody
wind
like
up. They can wind up
blindsides them.
10-2 and feel
Yeah,
fine.
absolutely.
It just they haven't looked like they've done that yet, and they haven't had the toughest part of the schedule. So we'll see. I think.
Well, when you're dressing everything up in the offseason, you're thinking like Tanner Mordecai and Phil Longo and Luke Fickell, like the air raid, and like, oh my God, in the Big Ten, the air raid is going to be crazy. And like, it all sounds great, but it takes some time, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of what they're dealing with. I know they had the injury to Malusi at running back, so we're going to see more Braylon Allen there. As they got to replace some carries. But, yeah, Tanner can be hit or miss, but he's going to have a big game at some point, and we'll be raving about him. And then he'll have another one where he throws a couple of picks, and you're just like, ah! But I think they're just working through this first year, and I think they're still in a good spot and, some things to be excited about.
Yep. And number 1, is Ohio State for real on defense? Because if they have fixed that problem, look, we know they're really good. That Notre Dame game, or was that a one-off? But are they better on defense? Have they finally, has Jim Knowles fixed that? Because he was brought in a couple years ago to do it, and last year hadn't yet. But this year, maybe they have shorted up to where they're not going to get gashed.
They've given up 34 points. Now, again, Indiana, Youngstown State, West, but they have not given up any points.
No, and today tomorrow or Saturday, we'll see.
14 with Notre Dame, yeah.
They're playing an offense that lights it up.
Yeah, Ohio State, I think, is still very, very good. I think they're, still capable of being explosive. The Marvin Harrison Jr. stuff is,
concerning?
Yeah, it's a little bit concerning. After he got hurt, and I know that Ryan Day had an interview and had an update on that, and I can't quite recall what he said. He explained sort of what happened, and it seems like something he's still working through after landing weird. So that's just something to monitor. Obviously, what great of a player as he is, but I think the big concern here is your Ohio State and your defense that has been known for giving up explosive plays ever since Jim Knowles came over from Stillwater. And you're facing a team where how can they beat you? This super explosive offense and quarterback who can make big plays. So that's like the big dynamic, I think, entering this game. And yeah, there's some cause for concern there, but I do think that this is the type of offense that you face where you'll have a pretty good idea or a better idea about where you stand after you face Talia and company.
Yeah, if it's like 59-33 or something like that, like they can just overwhelm you with their talent. Harrison, 17 catches, 336 yards, averaging nearly 20 yards a catch and 3 scores, which in some cases could be a game for him. Like it seemed like, but that's one of the things about Ohio State. The best receivers coming back, and then somebody else comes up. Remember in Jigba Smith and Smith and Jigba and others that stepped up when they had injuries.
Yeah, but Marvin Harrison's like a special kind of freak. He's like a special kind of freaky.
Yeah.
But you're right. If there's a program that can usually afford those types of losses, Ohio State's proven to be one, but I think just so much expectations for him and how good he is that, you worry a little bit when he's getting dinged up like that. So, that's going to be a fun game. I can't wait to watch that one. And, you normally, or you might not always think of Big Ten and the most exciting football, right? They kind of have the stereotype sometimes of 3 yards and a cloud of dust, but that's a game right there that ought to have a lot of fireworks attached to it, so that'll be fun.
Garrett, are you on strike tomorrow?